900,000 years ago, almost all of humanity died. Not millions were left, not thousands. 1,280. That is the number of people who could still have children on the entire planet. For more than 100,000 years, our ancestors walked the edge of extinction, and almost no one knows this, because the disaster left almost no bones to tell the story. The proof was hidden somewhere else, in a place you carry right now, this very second, inside your own blood. So hold on to this number, 1,280. By the end of this video, it will point straight at you, and stay until then, because what this number means changes the way you see yourself in the mirror. For a long time, no one suspected a thing. The story of our ancestors was always told through bones, skulls, teeth, pieces of jaw trapped in stone. But bones have a problem. They vanish. And between 800,000 and 900,000 years ago, there is a hole, an almost total emptiness in the fossil record, across all of Africa, across all of Eurasia. It is as if an entire chapter of our history had been torn out of the book. For a long time, that silence was just a boring mystery, a blank page no one could explain. And no one imagined what that blank page was trying to scream. That in that exact window, the moment the fossils disappear, our entire lineage almost ceased to exist. In 2023, a team decided to look for the answer where no one had looked. Wangjie Hu and his colleagues at the Chinese Academy of Sciences did not pick up a shovel. They did not dig the ground. They dug the genome. Because your DNA is not just a recipe for your body. It is an archive, a diary written across 1,000,000 years. Every time a population shrinks, it leaves a scar in that diary, whole pieces of variation that vanish forever. The scientists read the DNA of 3,154 people alive today, and they built a new method able to rewind that archive to count how many of us there were back then, thousands of centuries before anyone was born. And when the timeline finally appeared on the screen, it screamed one single thing.
930,000 years ago, something happened, and the population of our ancestors collapsed. It did not drop a little. It collapsed. 98.7% vanished. Stop and feel that number for a moment. Of every 1,000 ancestors that existed, fewer than 14 were left. The rest were gone. And what stayed standing? The entire species would fit inside a single theater. 1,280 adults able to make the next generation. That was the size of humanity. Not of a village, not of a city, of the whole world. And the blow was so deep that, according to the scientists, 2/3 of all our genetic diversity were erased right there, in a single squeeze. Lost before our species was even born. And understand who these people were. They were not like you. Homo sapiens did not yet exist. The first modern human was still more than 800,000 years from opening its eyes. These ancestors were something else. They walked upright. They chipped stone. Maybe they already stole fire from the lightning. And here's what gives you chills. That handful of survivors is not just your ancestor. It is everyone's ancestor, of every single person alive on this planet now. But it does not stop there. The Neanderthals came from them. The Denisovans came from them. Every human lineage that ever walked the earth passed through that squeeze, through that thin thread. If that group had died back then, history would simply end right there. No you, no me, no one. Forever. But what almost erased us? The answer is in the ice and in the sky. Back then, the earth entered a brutal phase. The glacier cycles grew longer, crueler. The glaciers pushed down over the north of the world. The oceans cooled. And in Africa, the cradle of our lineage, the water began to vanish. Droughts that lasted centuries. Rivers that turned to dust. Lakes that turned to cracks in the ground. Food disappearing, season after season. Now imagine living inside that. A world that every generation grows drier, colder, emptier. You watch your group shrink before your eyes. Fewer children born. Fewer hunters coming back. Fewer faces around the fire each winter. Until, one day, almost no one is left to light the flame.
And now comes the part that is hardest to imagine. This collapse did not last a year. It did not last a century. It lasted 117,000 years. Read that again. 117,000 years, living on the edge of the end. To give you an idea, the entire history of civilization, from the first pyramids to this video, fits in 5,000 years.
Now take that and multiply it by more than 20. That is how long our ancestors spent hanging by a thread. More than 4,000 generations. Each one born, struggling, loving, and dying, never knowing if the species would see the next 1,000 years. None of them knew they were part of the greatest crossing in our history. They knew only one mission, repeated generation after generation. Make it one more day. And it matters that you understand how close this was. A group of 1,200 people is not safe. It is the opposite of safe. It is fragile as a candle flame in the wind. When a population gets that small, it lives one single disaster away from total extinction. A new disease could have been enough. A drought a little longer. A winter that would not end. A volcano on the other side of the world. Any one of those blows at the wrong moment, and the story of intelligent life on Earth would have ended before it began. There was no guarantee. There was no plan. There was no hero with a name. There was only a group far too small, holding the entire future in its hands, without even knowing it held it. And still, against everything, the flame did not go out. So how did a group so small not disappear? The honest truth is that no one is completely sure. But they had weapons no other animal had. Maybe fire, which warmed the night, scared off the predators, and cooked the little there was. Maybe the unity of a group too small to afford to fight. When you are so few, every person is worth the world. Every child is the entire species trying to go on. They shared food. They protected the weak. They passed down everything they knew. And then, around 813,000 years ago, the planet finally gave in. The climate turned. The ice pulled back. Africa breathed again. And that stubborn handful of survivors at last began to grow once more. The crossing had been won.
And here is the part that changes how you see yourself in the mirror. That squeeze left a mark, and you carry that mark right now, this very moment, in every cell of your body. Human beings are strangely alike. Genetically, a single troop of chimpanzees in one forest holds more variety than the entire human species put together. Stop and think about that. 8 billion people, different languages, colors, and faces in every corner of the world, and almost no difference deep down in the code. Why? Because we all passed through the same narrow funnel. We came down from the same tiny group of people who barely survived. No matter your color, your language, the continent where you were born, deep down, we are all cousins, survivors of the same ancient disaster. But it is only fair to say one thing. This discovery is new, and real science does not stop here. Other researchers are now redoing the math, testing the method, searching for the missing bone. The answer is already written in our DNA, but the debate about it is only beginning, and that is where a chilling clue lives. At some point in our history, 2 chromosomes of our ancestors fused into a single one. That is why you have 46 chromosomes, and a chimpanzee has 48. Some scientists suspect that this incredibly rare event may have happened precisely in a tiny, isolated group, exactly like that one. A genetic accident that, in a large group, would be lost, but that in a handful of survivors became part of who we are. No one has fully crossed that door yet, and maybe it is your generation that will cross it. Now stop for a second, and let this truly sink in. Everything that came after almost never happened. Language, controlled fire, farming, cities, music, books, science, the people you love, this video on your screen. All of it hung for 117,000 years on a group smaller than the crowd at a small concert. If that flame had gone out, the universe would carry on exactly the same, but no one would be here to notice it. No eye to see the stars. If this story is moving you, write the word survivor down below and subscribe to Eonz, because this is where we open the past, one buried secret at a time. Because this is not just the story of those who came before you, it is proof about you.
So remember the number I asked you to hold on to at the start, 1,280. That was the size of all of humanity, the thin thread everything hung from. And those 1,280 people did not give up. For 117,000 years, in the cold, in the hunger, on the edge of nothing, they kept going. They had one more child. They lit one more fire. They saw one more sunrise. And that is exactly why you are here, now, with eyes to read this and a heart beating in your chest. You are not an accident. You are what happened when 1,280 people refused to be the last. You are living proof that they won.
So the next time everything feels impossible, remember where you came from. You descend from those who survived the end of the world, and giving up was never in your blood.